Okay, so before we dive, wait, di ba pala natin? I think it's always key to look back to where we've come from, right? It also helps us in terms of acknowledging what the curriculum of the course will be. So let's talk about how internet really came about, and what internet was doing, 1990s up until 2000s. So from 1990s to 2000s, you had the Web 1, then Web 2 somewhere about 2000s to 2017 or something, 2015. Then eventually we now have stumbled upon Web 3. And there's also talks about Jack Dorsey creating Web 5, which they completely skipped over Web 4. And it's interesting how people see internet is growing as of the moment. So it's really important to look back. Because one key thing about programming is, or one key thing about realizing what's knowledge in the world is, this is what people know, right? Let's say this is what people know. Web 3 is simply just a little bit more, something like that. So because of this is innovation. Innovation isn't about this is your knowledge and you create an entirely new concept that people understand. No, it's not like that. Knowledge or innovation is simply improving upon what has been existing before, and you constantly improve that. So it's important to take this type of mindset into programming, because if you realize now, okay, this is what I need to learn first, which is probably how Web 1 works. That's what you learn first. Eventually you go to Web 2, right? Then you have better fundamentals to work with Web 3. And understanding what each and every part of the web can do and what have they been doing helps you in your journey in becoming a better developer. So honestly, this is kind of like back in college, I had to study machine assembly language. So how the computer actually communicates with your code. It starts off there, and then eventually they exposed us to procedural language, and they exposed us to object-oriented language, etc., etc. So all of these things, it's important to really remember where we're coming from. So we already grasped these concepts early on, and then once we move forward, we just realize okay, this is the part that changed, versus saying that, okay, wow, I need to study all of these Web 3 things. Now let's take it a step by step, diba? And giving an overview of the history of Web 1, and hopefully making it a little bit more interesting as well in the entrepreneurship side by giving more examples of what has been surviving since Web 2. That would help everyone, each and every one of us, to make better decisions, right? As we view projects out there, at the same time make better decisions in our career, especially if we want to go for tech. So really, it's been 20 years of programming in tech. It's, I would say, even older than me. So I'm currently 26. I'm Seaver. I'm currently the CTO of Edamama. I'm also working with Playable, one of the projects that we're building. And also, I've basically been a tech guy ever since, right? So why am I qualified to do this talk? I don't know. I just have the passion for tech, I would say. And this is one of the reasons why I really love teaching it, and really love telling people that, really anyone can code. They just need guidance as to how to frame their mind or their mindsets approaching tech. So first and foremost, I really want to talk about the growth or the history of our internet. So from Web 1 to Web 3. And of course, talk about a little bit how you can make money from Web 3, just a little bit. So Web 1, this was actually our Yellow Pages. This was our Yahoo websites. This was our ABS-CBN news. What can you do with these pages, right? You basically can read off of it. They were just static. You can just consume the content. And first and foremost, it's actually controlled by corporations. So with that in mind, right, the simplest websites are those that you can just read from, which is basically the start of programming. Usually in this entire course, the first thing that we'll be tackling would be HTML and CSS, which is basically what all of these coding languages, all of these websites can do. You can basically just read off of it and you cannot interact with it. So that's Web 1. That's the easiest type of websites to do, and hence it will also be the first thing that we will be learning. Next is Web 2. Now, when Web 2 came along, we have more interactive websites. So what this means is we are now more prone to errors, to human errors, because this time Facebook is being used not just by programmers, right? It's not being coded by programmers. In fact, users can input a lot of things. So this was where hacking also became a problem, because now hackers can put malicious code into your we gave humans more power, right? We basically developers allowed other people to create content on the website. It made things a lot more complicated. So this is the second phase of development. This is when you start having to think about, oh, if my user does this, then it has to do this as well. So it's not anymore just static. It is now dynamic and interactive. There's also this is the same Web 2 companies that we see today. You know, you talk about Gcash, Union Bank, AWS, Shopee, Shopify, Twitter, Facebook. All of these are Web 2. It's controlled by corporations, but at least this time, user-generated content and user-specific content. It now gets a little bit more complicated because now you have error handlings to think about. You also have to think about, oh, to get money from me, right? What if they post really bad content? Like that's why you see in Facebook right now, there's a lot of what do you call this? There is a lot of checking that they do. They do a lot of administrative work to moderate the content that's on the website, because sometimes talaga there are bad people in the world, and the bad will try to use will try to use tries to use their technology against you. Then finally, we are now at Web 3. So these are some of the protocols. No, you have Ethereum, you have Terra Luna, you have Aave. So Ethereum, what's the difference here, right? So the difference now is it's still dynamic and interactive. So you see the growth. That it was just about Web 2. Now, so Web 1, it was about static. Web 2 is now about making things dynamic and interactive. There's now user-specific content. There's also user-generated content. It's still controlled by its user, but this time it's controlled by its users. The new technology here is actually blockchain. Blockchain, at the end of the day, is if we talk about yung mga changes over the years. So we have this thing called MVC pattern, which is model view controller. If you look at Web 2, if you look at Web 1, why is it not moving? Hello. Ayan, okay. If you look at Web 1, this was our view, right? Model view controller, this is our view. Web 2, we created controllers. So now there's model view controllers, and MVC framework, you can read up about it. It's basically like the backbone of every single technology framework or stack out there. MVC, model view controller. So here, this was introduced, model view controllers, whereas your view can interact with your controller, and then it also talks to your model, which is your database, in other words. Then finally, in Web 3, what changed here is your MVC. Now your model is shared or distributed. It's decentralized. So that's the difference. You still have the controller, you still have the model, and you still have the view. So yung nagpapalit is basically different stuff within the framework. Again, knowledge is just a little bit of change or a little bit of innovation into something that's already existing. So here's a really good summary, right, of what we're really looking at when we're talking about Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And this is something that all of us will be building. We can look at here online. When you're talking about Web 1, it's really mostly read only. So that's the first thing that we'll be doing, just read only. When we talk about walk, we're talking about Web 2, we're talking about read and write. So now you have to think about the write concept. Web 3, you're really talking about decentralizing everything, right? Making the model, making the data owned by the user as opposed to owned by specific corporation. I'll of course be sending these this presentation over as well. So let's deep dive into examples. Now, why are these examples important? This is so that you can also realize how industries have been changed through Web3. This is kind of where the entrepreneurship part of the talk comes in. So when you talk about content creation, really the most important thing to remember in Web 1 is that it is a cooperative that creates the content, and it's just basically for the mass to consume. So again, ABS-CBN News, they're the ones that really create all the content, and they just let people, view it. Web 2 is where users create content for other users. So a good example of this is like us right now. I am creating content for other users, but because I'm still letting this, I'm still uploading this to YouTube, it is still owned and operated by YouTube. And I do not get most of the profits, even though it's my content, right? Because they are a platform, so they are able to profit off of it. Web 3 is what's changing, right? Basically, users create content for other users, and I can profit off of my own content, and the web application is actually owned by me, or the ones who are using the protocol. So think about it this way: what if YouTube was decentralized in a way where people who check the videos are hosted, in multiple places, and because I am able to create a lot of content and bring a lot of people to join, then I can also get profit for selling my content. So parang may ganong idea. I think this also exists with Theta. This exists with a lot of video streaming platforms that are trying to change or trying to become Web3. So this is how, again, the industry has been growing. So this is a really quick example lang. Again, users consume the content. There's this corporation that creates and manages it. Advertisers pay the corporation. Then we have eventually users consume and create the content. Then you have corporations still managing the content, but you have the advertising paying for it. Enable. Okay, sorry. Next, finally, is the users. We literally cut off the entire corporation. So now the users consume, create, and manage the content itself. You cut off this entire corporation so that now the users own it, and the users actually get a lot of the benefits. How does this happen? Again, through blockchain, right? Pretty cool. When we talk about money or lending, borrowing, any type of thing, lending and borrowing is done to a corporation, right? This is how Web 1 works. Web 2 is somewhat similar to Kickstarter, where a group of people are able to lend money to you, but the corporation still owns the protocol and web application, and they get a cut out of the transaction. Web 3 is when you freely lend and borrow to other users. And the users of the web application, again, own the protocol itself by receiving revenue from the application. So that's your Aave, diba? So again, if we talk about Web 1, or like Kickstarter is the ones that still manages and make sure that they meet their deliverables. So kumbaga, you have someone in the middle who is able to make sure na they're able to keep up with their KPIs, right? Their key performance indicators. Finally, this is where Web3 comes in, wherein everybody lends and manages and pays each other freely, openly, right? Wala na yung corporation. Really, that's the plan here, to get rid of the corporation. So when you think about projects and when you think about creating these types of projects, we have to remember that yung concept or mindset natin isn't to actually create something entirely new, right? We could be looking at industries that we're already experts in. And what if we add the Web3 feel to it? Will it improve? Will it become better? It's important to think about it that way, because I think a lot of people make mistakes when they create their own protocols or like their own DAOs or their own projects. They miss the point sometimes that it's not about money. It's about improving something that's already existing in the industry and just innovating a little bit of it, adding a Web3 feel into it. And because it's a good idea, you can make a lot of money from it, right? And so how does this all happen? This is one of the key concepts that we have to remember if we're talking about Web3. There is such a thing as decentralized autonomous organizations. So ownership of percentage of the DAO is done in token format, similar to stocks lang. Again, stocks have been an idea that has existed for almost 50 years. Stocks, right? And now it's only transitioned into Web3 by giving it a token digital format that anyone can release. So you don't need PSE, you don't need the Philippine Stock Exchange, you don't need the New York Stock Exchange, you don't need Hang Seng Index, all of these things. Wala nang ganun. You can just freely deploy online and let the free market decide whether they want to buy that specific token or not. And voting is done based on ownership of tokens. So this is again similar to stocks. There's such thing as preferred stocks. There's such thing as common stocks, things like that. That's part of already what's existing in the market today. And we also have long-term holders who are rewarded. I think this is more of the idea behind dividends, right? And finally, for decentralized networks, network validators are rewarded by the token itself. So this only applies to Ethereum because Ethereum, again, is trying to become like decentralized internet in a way. Blockchain that is decentralized network. So the good thing about this is if you really don't want to, if you like, for example, you don't want to be part of the DAO, ideally, when you build something, you have to give a lot of value to even non-token holders, right? What do I mean by this? I think right now we see a lot of use case with PancakeSwap, Uniswap, right? When we want to purchase a new token, we don't need to go through all of this KYC that Binance requires. Anyone can list their token. And the best ideas here is that you can, even as a person who does not own Cake or does not own Uni, can interact with the protocol. But when you interact with the protocol, it makes more sense for you to own some of the tokens, because if you pay a fee towards the specific decentralized exchange, they give part of that fee towards the token holders. So by creating this type of decentralized economy, what we see is really we're improving how we interact with the internet. Instead of having these Facebook, Twitter, they have big problems right now. A key example of this is one of the reasons why fake news is extremely big is because content moderation is going unchecked. Right? We are heavily dependent on Facebook to do the content moderation. But what if you could just do content moderation in a Web3 fashion, wherein if people are able to really say now, oh, this content can go to this, can go online, then you're able to distribute all of those energy that is required to just moderate content. And you can actually allow people who don't really do much at home, who have free time, to moderate content, and when they moderate correctly, then they are paid handsomely for it, right? So that's possible with Web3. And it solves a lot of pain points that even Web2 companies have right now. So what specific issues do these decentralized autonomous organizations? So there's always a lot of decision points, right? Like, for example, when Facebook talks about, do I change my name to Meta as opposed to from Facebook, right? That change, that is a decision point that is decided by all of the stockholders, by all of the token holders. So that's how governance works. It's democracy, right? It's basically democracy. The more people who vote, who and I I'm going to be sending money to Arc, for example. I am person A and I send 100 PHP to person B, which is Arc. If I didn't have money, right, and it's all digital, the question at hand is, can I send 100 PHP to Arc? So Arc. The second one says, yeah, he has 100 pesos, so he can send money to Arc. But the third one says, no, I don't think he has 100 pesos. Therefore, he cannot send that money to Ark. So when we do it this way, you notice that 66% says yes, it can be sent. So in the world of blockchain, if you actually answer yes, if you actually answer majority says yes, this is basically where you see network confirmations happening, right? So the reason why Binance waits for 12 network confirmations, because it means that 99.9% that person actually has the money and they can send it over. Same thing happens for Bitcoin. I think for Bitcoin, it's around 10 to 15. So there's a math to it. I think they assure that 99.9% that person has the money, right? For you to be able to hack 12 computers, mahirap yun. That's like the 0.01% chance. So by what centralized exchanges do is that, okay, so pag 99.9% meron siyang pera, okay, sige, I'm gonna distribute the asset to you, therefore you can use it. So same thing happens here, because 66% said yes, pwede, it gets set. So now I now lose zero. My balance becomes 0 pesos, and then now Ark is able to get that 100 pesos. So that's basically how blockchain works, right? So that's basically Bitcoin and all layer 1 networks out there: Ethereum, Terra Luna, Phantom. Why is it important to talk about layer 1 networks? Because this is where we build our smart contracts, and this is where you try to get a better understanding of how blockchain works. So why is it called cryptocurrency? Before we dive into, I guess, development, one key thing that we have to remember is that cryptocurrency is not the technology itself. Cryptocurrency is simply an application of the new technology, which is blockchain. So one thing we have to remember is that cryptocurrency, the reason why it's called cryptocurrency is because to achieve decentralization, cryptography is very important. So before, I think this was in 1960s and 1970s, cryptography was just recently invented. So without cryptography, there was no way that cryptocurrency will work. So it's important for you to understand cryptography. But basically, in essence, the idea here is the reason why you see a lot of hash, right? Yung mga transaction hash, yung mga nonce, yung mga ganyan. All of those are cryptography. You need cryptography to make blockchain happen. So if this wasn't invented, I'm going to be telling you right now, Web3 will not have existed. And we have to remember that cryptocurrency is much more liquid, right? If you compare it to stocks, imagine if you need to transfer stocks. You need to have the stock certificate, and then you need to tell PSEPA that you're going to change the name to someone else. So it's very, very hassle versus cryptocurrency, wherein I send it to Ark and Ark already receives it immediately. The problem is it's not as stable as fiat or what we would call government-backed currency. But that's part of the risk that you're taking when you're doing when you're investing in cryptocurrency. So really, how do you make money? And why is it important to think about how we make money here? Because we have to remember that at the end of the day, money shows how much value you are giving back to society. What do I mean by this? The reason why, for example, a celebrity is paid much higher than you ever will is because the celebrity is able to have influence of 1 million people. So tell me or give me a number of people that can have the influence of 1 million people. Meaning, if I tell, like for example, si Catriona Gray that she will endorse BDO, tell me that BDO won't be able to get more sales because of that. Right? It's because Catriona Gray gives a lot of influence, therefore she also gets paid a lot. So that's the reason why money is a good indicator that you're giving a lot of value back into the world. Although yes, money is not the thing that we should be driving forward, because again, that would make us greedy. What I want to focus really is on how money determines, like for example, yung idea behind what makes some Web 2 companies really famous. So again, Web 3 is new, but if you invested early in Web 2, you'd also be, pretty rich, be fucking rich, right? If you had stocks of Tesla, Apple, Amazon, or Facebook back in the day, they were trading at $1 or even less, then you could have made it, right? There was a lot of risk at that time, but then if you really invested back then, you would have gotten it. The fundamentals of this, though, is that each cryptocurrency has their own use case. The interesting thing is there's also some economic mechanics into it, and there is the importance of community. And we have to remember that each has their own white paper. So or plans to offer. Why is this important? Before you build a blockchain app or project or any type of any type of project that you want to build, that any idea NFT project, you have to have a white paper that highlights why you're unique versus other people. You need to have your own use case. And this is where it comes in. It's not just about money, because if you provide value to people, then people will provide value back to you, right? It's as simple as that. People will pay for things that they need, not for things that they feel like, not for things that would how do I say this? It's easier to get money from people if they feel like they need your product. So this is why you have really strong giants right now, right? Industry giants, transportation industry. You have servers, which is Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon. You have cars. These are huge industries, almost $1 trillion industries that are kept untouched, and tech is the new one that's coming out, right? So doesn't matter if you are any type of company out there, but as long as you're able to give a lot of value to people, it's almost guaranteed that you will have profit, and it's almost guaranteed that you will be able to make money. So whenever you think about projects that you're going to be creating, make sure now pa lang, before we even start developing, you already have this idea na you feel like will change the world, right? Has a lot of use case that can provide a lot of value, so that when we start developing, you already have this mindset in place, and you're building something that might be valuable to you, and if not just you, maybe a lot more people. So think about that already now pa lang. So let's talk about an example, no? Ethereum. So yung use case niya is to become a decentralized network that allows dApps to get built. The supply of it is infinite as of the moment, but they say it's going to be sound money once the merge comes in, and there's a lot more burning that will be happening. The community that it has, it's literally the biggest layer 1 blockchain out there. There's a lot of developers who are developing on this, literally the biggest. Solidity is the biggest blockchain language right now, and that's what I hope to be able to give you guys as a value. Web 2.0 counterpart is actually Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Think about it, right? Apple really created this ecosystem wherein they have a hardware phone. People love it, and now people use it all the time. Here's a quick tidbit, no? If you actually create an app for App Store, Apple gets 30% of your revenues when you do an in-app purchase. 30%, right? So you can imagine how abusive that 30% is. And which is why they wanted to create Ethereum, because now with Ethereum, if you just have to pay a little bit for transaction fees, and we make a more decentralized economy within Ethereum, it's not as crazy as 30% of like the developer's income. At least this time, Ethereum, the most it will get from you is probably a little bit of transaction fees, right? Compare it to the revenue of a developer who gets taken like 30% versus in Ethereum, probably 1 to 2% lang. People would choose that. People would choose Ethereum. So same idea here. Again, even that small 30% reduction of revenue, that's already innovation at its core. That's innovation at its core. So you could be thinking of something as simple as that, fixing a simple problem like that. You could already really be adding a lot of value to the world. Ethereum right now is worth $1,500. Everybody's excited about the merge. So something that you have to remember is it hits $1 billion market cap, but they don't even have a main, let's say, corporation, right? Listed on PSE, listed on NYSE and things like that. So it's a really good it's a really good thing. So why should we care about use case, right? So if Facebook isn't useful, then why do you use it, right? It's not because you're addicted or things like that. It's because it's extremely useful. Really, if you think about it, The more use case a specific project has, the more people want a piece of that specific organization, the more people would need the token, the more people would want to purchase the token. And so then you have this flywheel of people wanting to just buy into your organization all the time. So why should we care about economic mechanics? The idea here is that when you create a blockchain project, you have to be very careful as to how much supply and demand you give. This is a very simple graph of how supply and demand talks to each other. But if the supply is greater than the demand, then the price is lower. If the demand is greater than the supply, then the price is higher. As simple as that. If you reduce supply, right, the price is higher, even if demand is relatively low. So a good example of this is Ethereum or Terra Luna. Back then, they were burning their token supply as more users use their protocol. Hence, it really calls for a higher price. This is why people are also more excited with the merge of Ethereum, because once Ethereum handles a lot more transactions and it's burning base fees a lot more, then we can expect that the price of Ethereum will go up because it is now deflating as opposed to inflating. By reducing supply, again, you can increase your price. Finally, why do you care about community? So community is probably one of the most important things in cryptocurrencies. If we think about it, this is basically the idea behind daily active users. This is the idea behind how many monthly active users Mark Zuckerberg wasn't really the smartest of the bunch. He created Facebook, but then he made a lot of bad decisions. So let's say Facebook is stupid and it failed. Well, Facebook really wouldn't exist at the present. So Facebook as an organization, right? It's the same thing here goes for cryptocurrencies, because now we have taken away the corporation from the picture. It is now up to the people who are maintaining the website, who are maintaining your project, who are shilling your project. They need to be the ones that would make sure that the cryptocurrency would exist, because without the community, imagine if there was not much Bitcoin maxis in the world. Where would Bitcoin be right now, right? Imagine if there was not enough Ethereum maxis in the world. Where would Ethereum be right now? Nowhere to be found, right? So if Vitalik Buterin stopped developing, then probably no one will want to use Bitcoin. If Binance didn't support Bitcoin, or a lot of more exchanges didn't support Bitcoin, then Bitcoin wouldn't exist right now. So it's extremely important to have a strong community. So here in crypto, community is essential, right? So if the community is stupid and fails, then the specific cryptocurrency won't exist in the coming years. So cryptocurrency exists because of the community. Another way of looking at it is humans make a company, right? Humans make literally everything else in this world, right? There's really no one-man island in the world. There's no such thing as a really smart guy who does not need a lot of people under him to be able to execute a lot of things. Yes, there are great individuals who can be one-man team, but they can't scale to a point like they can become $1 trillion industry. I think that's highly improbable. Now with the advent of tech, obviously there's a lot more automation, but I still think it's highly improbable as of the moment. Maybe in the future we would see a trillionaire who literally operates by himself. Maybe that's possible. I don't know. But as of the moment, I would say communities are extremely important for that. Community also give free marketing, and of course they want to be able to make more money. So think about it now, it's a flywheel, right? Community gives value if you give back value to it. Here's some like cryptocurrency terms. I don't think we need to go too deep into this, but what I really want to focus on is this. So we have to remember that Web3 is pretty much similar to the dot-com bubble, right? A lot of Web2 companies way back kept popping up. They created wonderful products. We can research about the dot-com bubble that happened in around 2000, 2001, mga ganun. A lot of Web2 companies actually kept popping up in the New York Stock Exchange. A lot of people kept listing, but only a few survived. Literally only Amazon, Facebook, Apple survived at that time. So 3 out of what? 1,000? Right? So medyo medyo mahirap siya, yes. But again, the reason why Amazon and Facebook survived is because, number one, Amazon allowed you to stay at home and order things you need without ever leaving your house, right? And it delivers it at your doorstep at the same day. Crazy. This was never heard of back 20 years ago. Like I would like if you go ask your parents or even some people here would remember that they need to go out, right? And go to a grocery store and purchase. Now, not so much. Because of e-commerce, everybody can just order from home. Facebook survived because it allowed us to connect to our friends who we never get to see every day. Can you imagine, right? Before the time of Facebook, how did people talk to each other? Snail mail? Are you kidding me? It takes 2 weeks just to send a message and then receive a message back after 2 weeks. And then what if it's paper pa? So what if it rains, right? If it rains, wala na yung communication mo. So because Facebook provides a lot of value, right? It allows us to connect even our friends in the US. I could literally start a call with my sister right now in the US and I would see her. And that brings a lot of value to me. So we have to remember that, again, when we build cryptocurrency projects or we even invest in cryptocurrency projects, it's about really investing in cryptos that actually solve real world problems. And of course, not financial advice. I'm not going to be giving you a specific crypto that I think is solving the real world problem. But these are the types of projects that you have to be thinking about. Before we dive into actual development, it's important na, give yourself a week. Think about what you want to build. What are you really passionate about? Personally, I like agriculture, right? I want to help farmers get rid of the middleman in between. Kumbaga, is that possible with crypto? I don't know, but I'll give a think about it. Probably there's a concept there that might work. I just need to study more about the agricultural industry and maybe come up with my own Web3 product for it in the future. And there's a lot of people who are coming up with Web3 products for various industries. The strength that you need to have is what's the industry that you like working on? What's the industry that you're strong in yourself? So that you have the passion. And that differentiates founders from successful founders from not so successful founders. Not so successful founders would usually focus on profit. But really, the successful ones focus on bringing value back to the world. So yeah, that's it. That's basically the presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, that's going to cover basically about of what we're going to be talking about. So again, to recap, we're going to be talking about we're going to be doing Web 1 stuff first. Web 1 stuff meaning HTML, CSS. And then once we have proceeded, we will now go for HTML, CSS, React frameworks, backend APIs, databases. And then finally, once we have finished the databases and all that, then we can proceed to blockchain development, which is basically where Web3 is right now. So that's been the growth of internet. I hope you
Thank you, Seaver. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us an overview of how technology evolved from Web 1. So to the audience right now, we're not sure what your background is, whether you have a certain conceptual framework of what Web3 is, but at least we saw brands and we got to see the text that we're already using, such as Facebook, for instance. So ganun siya. But again, we do not expect to learn all of these overnight. That's why this is a continuous process. And then we're going to take it step by step from Web 1, once again, very basic, up to Web 3, as to how and in what manner or how to build on top of the previous knowledge. That's actually on Seaver's shoulder. But I guess that he has done this before. And so it's just going to be almost like coasting along, I suppose, for him. Once again, this is pre-recorded and then we're going to upload this on our channel. If you're watching this on replay, then you can still join us sessions namin every Wednesday. Follow us on Twitter, Near Philippines, because we might have some announcements there. And then also, we may be able to have some guests to interview from time to time. But we're going to have some seat works and some homeworks for us to do our coding, basically. Why are we doing this? Because we want to facilitate future builders to propagate more people, kumbaga, sa Web3. Because I think if you so Web3 is here to stay, but there might be some kapos na supply later on. There may not be enough supply of developers, and that's why we're here. But even then, even if I guess development is not your passion, at least if you have some sort of an experience and hands-on project, then you can understand how it works, and then you can start launch your own project as a founder. So once again, Seaver, thank you very, very much for the time, and we appreciate your expertise. We have a question here. Will it be newbie dev friendly?
Of course. Yeah. So we're starting off with, again, HTML, CSS first. That's the most basic. The reason being is because you can immediately see value. So simply coding a little bit of HTML, the computer already gives you feedback. So we'll be talking about a little bit more about Chrome dev tools, things like that. But we'll start off with things like HTML, CSS, simple things. And then it gets a little bit more complicated as we go. So yeah, definitely newbie dev friendly. That's the idea here.
Okay. Seaver, maybe it's a bit of encouragement. Maybe some of us here are overwhelmed. Is it really possible for everyone or anyone to learn how to code?
So yeah, that's what I believe in. So just to give you guys context as well, there is a lot of blockchain there's a lot of boot camps right now. A lot of development boot camps, startups. You can hear about Codego. You can also hear about Avion School. All of them allow career transitioners to develop on their own. And honestly, the best developers I've met so far don't come from a computer science degree. Most of their knowledge really just comes from Googling and having the openness to learn how technology is going to bring them. Of course, the biggest challenge is always going to be finding mentorship, people who are willing to teach you along the way, to drive down the concepts, right, and principles. But that's why I'm here. Ideally, that's what I help you guys with. So it's easier for you guys to also understand and listen about how it's gonna be, how you're gonna be growing in your career. So yeah, and I truly believe that anyone can code. It's as simple as Googling the right terms. The joke that we have as developers is that we just simply copy and paste from Stack Overflow, see if it works. If it works, then it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't, right? Honestly, I still do that up until today. I've been coding for 5 years, but until today, I still Google, I still use Stack Overflow. Really, it's finding the right keywords. Yun yung importante. How do you read errors and then search for the right terms in Stack Overflow? So yeah, things like that. Hopefully those are the things that will help you or help you in your journey as a developer.
Thank you, Seaver. Also, maybe another important point, if the audience here or the community members don't want to be spoon-fed only during our meetings, can you recommend any other resource, be it video or written, for them to chew on until we meet again next week? Just to give a
yeah, so there is a lot of so Udemy is one, Free Code Camp is one also. There's a lot of free code courses out there, even YouTube, right? YouTube can be a good start. I would highly recommend that the first thing that you learn about is really HTML, CSS. Just learning about the basics. What are the different type of frameworks right now that are available on CSS? So some terms that you can research is like, for example, Flexbox. That's important. Flexbox. You can also research about Flexbox, grid systems, Bootstrap. There's also Tailwind, CSS. Those are already good search words that you can do, and that will already bring you to a rabbit hole of things you can do with HTML code.
All right. I suggest also if we can create a temporary group chat at Telegram, so that if they have questions, at least before our session for next week, we can try to prepare to answer some of these, I guess. I don't know whether it will be long term, but I guess that at least people, when they want to join our sessions, then the community members can help one another when it comes to resource and so on and so forth. Would that be a reasonable proposal?
Yeah, sure. And to answer the question, yes, I personally use Visual Studio as well. I love using Visual Studio. It's one of the best IDEs. So IDEs are integrated development environments. Something that we'll also be learning the next few weeks. So Visual Studio. I'll give a better guideline as to what we're going to be studying up the next few weeks, which is most likely Bootstrap.
Okay. Cool. Red, would you like to be the admin for a Telegram group for now? That would be great. Could you send me your handle, please, Telegram? Once again, guys, actually we're thankful that we have Seabury here to teach us, because you know why? So we got mentorship, we got a sense of community here. But at the same time, this is a great opportunity for us to participate in the goings on in the tech world right now, which is crazy in Web3. Actually, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of funding. A lot of VCs are willing to fund different projects. So if you want to jack up your professional financial status, if you will, then you're in the right place. We would like to support you, and we're very thankful for Seabury here. Would there be anything else before we wrap up?
I think, good question. So will we do Solidity or Rust near protocol? Concepts wise, I think it's better that we do Solidity first. Reason being is most standards in Rust right now, any protocol that you talk about, Near, Cosmos, things like that, the naming convention that they follow is actually similar to Solidity. So if you talk about ERC20 or ERC721, there is an equivalent in Rust or Near protocol, which is called NEP20 or NEP721. Cosmos is CW20, CW721. So understanding these concepts, NFTs, fungible tokens, that's very important. And it really, all of it stemmed from Solidity. And Solidity also have more dev tools. Actually, it's easier for you to be hired if you're good at Solidity versus being good at Near protocol. I'll be touching on Rust eventually, and then probably Near protocol.
All right, there you go. Okay, guys, you can reach us. You can reach me on Telegram if you want to be part of the group already, because we're going to answer your questions there. Okay, may DM though. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you everyone for attending. We're actually going to stop the video, but I think that if you want to stay still and hang out with us here, that's possible as well. I'm gonna linger here for the next 5 to 10 minutes for what do you say, for correspondence, and then for some planning until we meet again next week. Okay, that's it for now. Anyone can stay, anyone can leave should you need to eat your dinner still or cook. But yeah, thank you everyone once again for coming, and we'll see you next week.